The happiness we keep chasing all our lives is not the radiant smiles on social media, not the love that is perfectly returned, and not even the warmth in every relationship. What you call happiness is often just a shiny mask on the outside. I have seen many people believe they were happy, but with only a moment of unexplained silence, a sudden wave of jealousy, or a single rejection, their entire inner world collapsed right before their eyes. And it is in that very moment that the truth is revealed. Happiness is not measured by how much you have, but by how firmly you can stand when tested. Do not mistake it. Silence, jealousy, and rejection are not your enemies. They are mirrors reflecting with precision how much you have truly grown. So the real question for you is this: do you have the courage to look at yourself in that mirror? Have you ever sat in a quiet room with no messages arriving, no one calling your name, and suddenly felt your heart tighten as if the whole world was abandoning you? That is the moment when silence turns into an invisible storm. People often think silence means indifference, a sign of love dying out, but the truth is different. Silence does not destroy you. It only exposes the things you have not yet dared to face within yourself. In the courtroom, I have witnessed this countless times. The one who loses composure in the face of silence often loses control, while the one who stays calm holds all the power. Life is the same. When silence appears, you have two choices: to react instinctively or to respond intentionally. The instinctive reaction is to label it immediately. He is silent, which means he no longer loves me. She does not reply, which means she looks down on me. Why am I being ignored? Is it because I am not good enough? The scenarios you create in your mind are often harsher than reality itself, but an intentional response is different. That is the moment you pause and ask, why does this silence make me so uneasy? What wound inside me does it touch? You see, silence is not what hurts you. It is the emptiness within that drives you into panic. A mature person understands that silence is an opportunity to look inward. Instead of rushing to send a flood of messages, instead of interrogating or overthinking, they choose to sit with that silence, watching emotions rise and ripple like waves on the surface of water. At first, you will feel fear, but just like walking into a dark room, if you do not turn on the light right away and instead allow your eyes to slowly adjust, you begin to see the outlines. Silence is the same. With patience, you will discover that behind it is not indifference, but a chance to have a conversation with yourself. And this is the very first step to reclaiming ownership of your emotions. A happy woman does not run away from silence. She does not attach it to rejection, nor turn it into proof of failure. She looks straight at it and asks, what am I needing from others that I have not yet learned to give myself? In that moment, she steps out of the role of a victim and moves into the position of a master of her own life. Do you know what happens when you dare to walk through silence? You realize your heart is not as fragile as you once thought. You begin to feel free because you are no longer dependent on someone else's response to determine your worth. And that is the foundation of lasting happiness. Happiness no longer tied to circumstances, but rooted in the strength within you. Remember, silence is a mirror. It does not judge, it does not lie, it only reflects with honesty what is happening inside you, the immature rush to cover their eyes, afraid of their own reflection. The mature dare to look, nod, and say, I am here with all of my truth. That is the moment they begin the journey of becoming themselves. But if silence is a mirror, then jealousy is the doorway into another shadowed place. Do you dare open that door? What is it that sets your jealousy on fire? Is it really about the other person? Or is it about a part of you that has been forgotten for too long? In the next part, we will step into the territory of jealousy, where the shadow not only tests you, but also reveals the dreams that have never been lived. If silence is the mirror that reflects the truth within you, then jealousy is the door that opens into a darkness most of us do not want to enter. No one wants to admit that they feel jealous because society attaches ugly labels to it. weakness, insecurity, lack of confidence. But the truth is different. Jealousy is not the enemy. It is a signal. It is a call from a part of you that has been forgotten, a part that once longed to live fully, but has been pushed down, suppressed, or rejected. When you see others being loved more, succeeding more, or daring to express themselves more, and you feel your heart ache, that pain is not because of them. It is a message from within you saying, I want to live like that too, but I have not allowed myself to. In the courtroom, I once saw the eyes of a wife when her husband looked at another woman. The jealousy flared up uncontrollably, but what hurt her most was not that look. The deepest pain was the hidden belief that she was not enough, that she could be replaced at any moment. That is what jealousy does. It touches the deepest fear you carry, the fear of being unworthy. And this is where the path divides. The immature allow jealousy to pull them into the spiral of control, comparison, and self-destruction. They search through phones, scrutinize every post, obsess over scenarios that do not exist. Every image of their partner looking another way becomes proof of betrayal in their imagination. And from there, they shrink themselves, telling themselves, if I were more beautiful, more interesting, less demanding, then maybe things would be different. But here's the truth. No outward change can ever fill the emptiness inside. Jealousy cannot be solved from the outside. It can only be resolved when you dare to look within. A happy person is different. When jealousy rises, they do not deny it. They do not pretend they feel nothing. They face it directly. They ask themselves, what part of me is speaking here? What desire have I not yet allowed myself to live? Perhaps it is a dream from youth that was abandoned. Perhaps it is the feminine allure you once had, but buried to appear safe. Perhaps it is the longing to freely express yourself, which you have suffocated out of fear of being judged. Jealousy is like another mirror, but instead of reflecting your current truth, it shows you the parts of life you have never dared to live. And when you are brave enough to look at it instead of running away, you begin to touch a powerful source of energy, your own energy that has been forgotten for too long. This is the fundamental difference. The immature see jealousy as proof they are less. The mature see jealousy as a map pointing to the missing pieces in their journey. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, do you remember the last time you felt jealous? What did it reveal to you? I want to hear your answer in the comments. And if you feel this message touches you, please like and subscribe so you do not miss the next parts. Because we are going to go even deeper into this journey, the journey of becoming the person you truly long to be. But if jealousy is a door, then rejection is the final test, the place where your true worth is put through fire. What hurts more than silence, more than jealousy? It is the moment of rejection. Have you ever been through it? In the next part, we will step straight into the harshest territory, rejection, the test that determines whether you truly own your value or whether you are still handing it into the hands of others. If silence is the mirror and jealousy is the door, then rejection is the final test of self-worth. Nothing strikes the ego more deeply than the moment you are turned away, not chosen, not loved, not accepted. It does not only hurt, it rips apart the curtain you have worn for so long to believe that your value depends on the eyes of others. Rejection exposes a harsh truth. If no one calls your name, do you still know who you are? Many people cannot bear this question. They cling, they beg, they try to change everything just to be accepted again. They lose dignity, bargain with themselves, and live in fear that if they are not needed, they have no reason to exist. But the truth is different. Rejection never defines your true worth. It only shows how long you have given that power to others. The pain of rejection does not come from losing a relationship or an opportunity, but from losing the illusion that others have the authority to decide if you are worthy. The immature usually react in three ways. They cling, trying to hold on to even the faintest trace. A message, a glance, They blame themselves, torturing their minds with thoughts like, what did I do wrong? I am not good enough. Or worse, they let their value fall into free fall, believing they are failures, no longer worthy of love. But look closer. Rejection is not the end. It is the moment when truth knocks at your door. Do you really know who you are when no one chooses you? The mature understand this. They still hurt, still cry, still spend nights in anguish, but then they rise again. They do not let rejection become a permanent sentence. They do not say, I was rejected, so I am not enough. They say I was rejected, but that does not strip away my true worth. And it is there that a powerful image rises, the image of an inner queen. A queen does not need anyone to acknowledge her throne. She knows the throne has always been within her. Rejection cannot topple that position. It is only a test to see if she remembers who truly owns it. When you face rejection, you have two choices. You can see it as proof of failure and live in fear, or you can see it as a test. Can I still stand firm when I am not chosen? And if you can remain calm, hold your dignity, and walk proudly with your true worth, then you have passed that test. Rejection, after all, does not take anything away from you. It only strips off the disguise so you can see that your true worth has never depended on anyone else's gaze. It has always been within you, and as long as you dare to keep it, no one can touch it. So if you are facing rejection, do not see it as the end. See it as a threshold, because behind every rejection, if you are brave enough to walk through, is another version of you, stronger, freer, and truly unshakable. And that is the greatest privilege of life, to become yourself without needing any choice from the outside to prove it. There is one thing I am certain of. No one goes through life without once falling into darkness. Darkness here is not a room without light. It is the days you feel useless, the moments of jealousy that make you ashamed, the silence that drives you mad, or the rejection that knocks you down. But listen to me. Darkness does not come to destroy you. It comes to rebirth you. People often think maturity comes from light, from moments of success, from the sound of applause. In reality, it is the opposite. You only truly grow when you dare to sit in the middle of the dark, not running, not pretending to be strong, but facing your wounds directly. Because light does not teach you as much as darkness does. Light only confirms how far you have come, but darkness shows you who you really are. I have seen people who after a breakdown thought they could never rise again, but in that painful silence they began to change. They no longer lived to please others, no longer feared how they were perceived. They came out of the dark with a new strength, a strength no one gave them but one they forged themselves. Darkness, if you dare to walk through it, becomes the furnace for your courage. It burns away the old shell, the false assumptions, the illusion that your value depends on outside approval. It strips you layer by layer until you stand bare with your true self. And at that moment, you have two choices: to collapse in fear or to seize the chance to be reborn as someone no longer controlled by fear. A happy person is not the one who avoids the dark, but the one who has been there, who has trembled, who has suffered, but has learned to rise and say, I do not need anyone else's light to prove myself. When you are reborn from darkness, you no longer run from silence because you know it is an opportunity to hear yourself. You no longer fear jealousy because you understand it is only a reminder of the part of you you have not yet lived fully. You no longer break under rejection because you realize your value was never taken away. And that is the moment you truly step into freedom. Rebirth is not loud. It does not come with fireworks or applause. It comes in silence. When you sit alone and realize whether the world chooses me or not, I still choose myself. And once you have chosen yourself, you are no longer easily shaken. The world may be silent toward you, may turn its back, may stir jealousy or pain, but you know clearly none of that decides who you are. You are the one who decides. That is the turning point, where darkness is no longer a prison but becomes a door. When you walk through that door, you are no longer who you were. You become the person you were always meant to be, strong, proud, and free. And that is the true meaning of rebirth. There is a power most people underestimate, the power of emotional self-control. Not the power to control others, not the authority to force them to listen to you, but the ability to control your own reactions in any circumstance. The truth is, you cannot decide what others will say, do, or even how they will feel about you, but you can always choose how you respond. And that very choice determines whether you are swept away in chaos or whether you stand firm in your strength. In the courtroom, I have seen people lose everything because they could not hold themselves together for a single moment. A challenging look, a provoking question, and suddenly anger erupts, leaving reason behind. But I have also seen people so calm that everyone had to listen to them simply because they did not let impulsive emotions take control. That is real power, to respond with intention instead of reacting by instinct. The immature live the opposite way. They live in immediate reflex. Someone is silent and they instantly feel abandoned. Someone succeeds and they instantly feel jealous. Someone rejects them and they instantly believe they are worthless. These are all automatic reactions, no pause, no choice, and that is why they remain controlled by circumstances. The mature understand that between stimulus and response, there is always a space. That space is where strength is forged. When you know how to pause, breathe, and observe the emotions rising instead of acting immediately, you step out of the grip of circumstances. You are no longer a puppet of silence, of jealousy, of rejection. You become the master of yourself. Remember, no one can make you lose your calm unless you hand them that power. No one can make you doubt your worth unless you allow them to decide for you. And no rejection can bring you down unless you believe it can. Emotional self-control is not about suppression, not about pretending you do not hurt or do not feel anger. It is about acknowledging those emotions, but choosing not to let them drive your life. You can feel pain, but still act with dignity. You can feel jealousy, but still choose to look at what you are missing instead of tearing someone else down. You can be rejected, but still choose to stand tall and keep moving forward. That is real strength. And when you live in emotional self-control, you will find that you are no longer as easily hurt as before, not because you are numb, but because you have built a solid foundation, a foundation of calm, of awareness, and of the ability to choose your response. This world will never stop testing you. There will always be moments of silence that unsettle you, moments of jealousy that steal your sleep, moments of rejection that make you ache to the core. But if you have the strength of emotional self-control, none of these can defeat you anymore. They become training exercises. And with every test you overcome, you grow stronger, freer, and unshakable in the face of what you cannot control. That is the peak of lasting happiness, not when the world always goes your way, but when you are strong enough to stand firm no matter how the world changes. There is a skill that few people pay attention to, yet it clearly separates a fragile mind from a mature one, the art of observing yourself in chaos. I call it an art because it requires training, patience, and a strong will not to be swept away. Chaos here is not only the events outside, but also the noise inside you, the repetitive thoughts, the worst assumptions, the voices in your head always asking, am I not good enough? Am I about to lose everything? Those who have never learned to observe themselves react instantly. A forgotten message immediately turns into anger. A small comparison turns into blind jealousy. A single rejection turns into the belief that they have no worth. They are dragged along by their own emotional current, like someone falling into a river and trying to swim in panic until they are exhausted. The mature are different. They know how to pause, observe, and ask, is this truly my emotion or just an automatic reaction from an old wound? They look at fear as if watching a storm from afar. They do not deny it. They do not run from it, but they do not dive into it either. They wait, They observe, and from that, they find the right way to act. The art of observing yourself is not about being numb. On the contrary, it requires a heightened sensitivity. You must be alert enough to notice when your anxiety is exaggerating the situation, when your anger is trying to drive every decision, when your jealousy is disguising itself as love. And only when you notice this can you stop and choose. Imagine you are in a heated argument. Instinct wants you to shout, to fight back, to prove you are right. But if you know how to observe yourself, you will see what is really happening. You are not angry because they are wrong. You are angry because you feel disrespected. Recognizing this gives you the chance to change your approach instead of losing yourself in an outburst. Observing yourself also helps you distinguish what is true from what is just the story you tell yourself. A cold glance might make you think someone hates you, but if you pause and observe, you will see that the tension in you comes from the fear of being abandoned, not from the truth of the situation. And it is this pause that is the place where real strength is born. Practicing self-observation is not easy. It is like standing in the middle of a battlefield, yet staying calm enough to see the whole picture. But every time you manage it, you escape the control of circumstances. You become the driver, not the one being dragged along. And when you repeat this often enough, you build something priceless, inner freedom. The world out there will never stop being chaotic. But you do not need the world to be calm in order to find peace. You only need to learn how to observe, to clearly see what is a true feeling and what is an unconscious reaction. From there, you choose to act with clarity, instead of being carried away by emotion. That is the art of those who are not defined by circumstances, but who define themselves by the way they respond to them. And that is also an essential step on the journey to becoming the strongest and freest version of yourself. There is a paradox that few dare to face. Pain is not the enemy, it is the greatest teacher in your life. People often try to avoid pain, to hide their wounds, to quickly patch them with fleeting pleasures. But the truth is, you cannot be strong if you have never walked through pain and learned how to live with it. The wound you despise today may be the very place where light enters your life tomorrow. I have seen many people crushed by failure, torn apart by loss, and in the very moment they thought they could not rise again, they discovered a strength they never knew they had. Pain, when faced directly, is no longer just a burden. It becomes a furnace, melting down the old self and reshaping you into a stronger version. The immature often let pain define them. They put labels on themselves. I was abandoned, so I must be unlovable. I failed, so I must be incapable. I was rejected, so I must be worthless. But that is not the truth. It is only the story pain whispers into your ear. If you are not mindful, you will believe it. The mature are different. They still hurt, sometimes deeply, but they look at pain and ask, what is this teaching me? And that very question turns wounds into strength. Pain can teach you how to let go of dependence. It can teach you how to rebuild yourself from ashes. It can teach you compassion, because only when you have been broken can you truly understand the suffering of others. And most importantly, pain gives you the chance to redefine yourself. You may be hurt, but you are not broken. You may lose a relationship, an opportunity, a dream, but you do not lose your inherent worth. If you are brave enough to walk through pain, you will realize you are no longer the same. You are stronger, deeper, and freer. Think of the image of an athlete after an injury. At first, there is fracture and despair. But after recovery, they return with a body more resilient and a mind more steady than before. Humans are the same. Pain is the injury of the soul, and if you know how to heal properly, you not only recover, you go further. Do not mistake this. Pain does not disappear just because you pretend it is not there. It only lies silently, waiting for the day it erupts with greater force. The only path is through it. Face it, feel it, learn from it, and allow it to reshape you. One day when you look back, you will see that the very wounds you thought you could never survive became the starting point of a strength you never imagined. And then you will understand pain never stood in your way. It was the raw material, the rough stone that you polished to become a stronger and brighter version of yourself. Pain, if you dare to walk with it, will become an unshakable strength. And that is why those who know how to turn pain into power carry within them a resilient beauty that nothing can replace. There is one quality that every inner strength must rely on: consistency and discipline. If pain forges you into steel, then discipline is the fire that keeps the steel unbreakable. People often think discipline is pressure, is force, is the chain that binds freedom, but the truth is the opposite. Discipline does not take away your freedom. It gives you a more lasting kind of freedom. Freedom from being a slave to passing emotions, old habits, and unconscious reactions. Consistency means you know clearly the path you are walking. And even when storms rise, you keep your steps steady and do not drift off course. It is when you choose not to send messages in panic just because someone is silent. It is when you choose not to let jealousy turn into blind control. It is when you choose not to let rejection break you, but keep walking with your own pride. Discipline is the solid frame that holds you upright when emotions try to bend you. No one becomes strong by accident. Strength is the result of thousands of times you choose what is right instead of what is easy, choosing silence to observe instead of reacting immediately, choosing to sit down and write out your pain instead of rushing to escape it, choosing to rise again after failure instead of falling forever in self-pity. The immature often live in a world of momentary emotions. They act on impulse, on fear, on whatever is easy in front of them. They want results now, but refuse to pay the price of consistency, and then they wonder why happiness keeps slipping away. The mature understand that all true change requires discipline. You cannot expect peace if every day you let your emotions sweep you away. You cannot expect freedom if you do not train yourself to say no to fleeting urges. Discipline is not dry or harsh. It is an act of self-love. It is when you respect yourself enough not to allow yourself to keep living the old way. It is when you keep promises to yourself even when no one knows, no one is watching. Because you understand that every time you keep a promise to yourself, you lay another brick in the foundation of your confidence and dignity. Consistency is not rigidity, it is perseverance. It is the ability to return to the right path every time you drift away. It is the reminder that you do not need to be perfect, but you must remain loyal to your goals and values. And that is what creates unshakable strength. When you live with inner consistency and discipline, you are no longer blown away by the winds of life. You may sway, you may stumble, but you never break. You stand firm because you know clearly who you are and how you have chosen to live. And then you realize true happiness does not lie in the results you achieve, but in every moment you hold yourself steady against temptation, against fear, against the dark. That is lasting happiness, built from daily consistency, from small but steady acts of discipline, and from the courage never to give up. There is a destination that every journey through silence, jealousy, rejection, pain, and discipline is moving toward: wholeness within yourself. Wholeness does not mean you have no flaws or no mistakes. It means you stop searching for pieces outside of you to patch up the emptiness inside. You no longer live dependent on the validation of others. No longer let old wounds decide how you see the world. You rise, look at yourself directly, and say, I have always been enough, even when others could not see it. Wholeness is when you no longer divide yourself into two people, the one you perform for the world and the one you hide in the dark. It is when you gather all the fragments, the weakness, the pride, the fears, the unfinished dreams, and bring them together into a whole that you accept. The immature are different. They constantly run away from themselves. They wear masks to be loved, to be respected, to be chosen. But the problem with masks is that the longer you wear them, the farther you drift from who you really are. And one day, you will feel empty even while applause surrounds you. Because what is loved is not your true self, but only the version you think others want to see. The mature understand that nothing is more precious than wholeness. It gives you a kind of strength you can never borrow from anyone else. When you are whole, you do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to fight for attention. You are no longer threatened by someone else's silence, no longer shaken by jealousy, no longer crushed by rejection. You know exactly who you are, and from that place, you stand firm as something original and unshakable. But wholeness does not come from wishing, it comes from courage. Courage to look at your own shadow, courage to face the pains that have not healed, courage to admit that you are both weak and strong, both flawed and lovable exactly as you are. And when you do that, a deep peace appears. Peace not because you have eliminated all darkness, but because you are no longer afraid of it. You have learned to walk with it, and through that, you become whole. Wholeness also gives you another priceless gift, freedom. When you are whole, you are no longer bound by the need to please others. You love when you want to love. You stop when you need to stop. You say no when your values are violated. You live truthfully, and that truthfulness becomes the strongest form of attraction. Wholeness does not promise you an easy life, but it gives you a real one. A life in which, even as you walk through silence, jealousy, rejection, or pain, you still keep your core intact. And when you arrive at this place, you realize happiness was never about being chosen, being recognized, or being perfectly loved. Happiness is when you are brave enough to choose yourself, to embrace everything you once denied, and finally become a whole being, free, proud, and unshakable. The final image we are all moving toward is not of someone who is always smiling brightly, always loved, always having perfect answers. That image is only a polished shell. The woman who is truly happy and free is the one who has walked through silence without breaking, walked through jealousy without making herself a victim, walked through rejection while keeping her dignity, walked through pain and found strength, walked through discipline and consistency until finally returning to her own wholeness. She is not a perfect person. She is a truthful one, someone who knows she has scars, but is not ashamed of them. Someone who dares to stand alone in a quiet room without needing applause to feel worthy. Someone who knows that love is not begging or clinging, but a choice made from the position of a free heart. This woman carries a special kind of presence, not from appearance or words, but from her being. When she walks into a room, you feel an energy that is calm yet unshakable. Because she does not need to impress, she only needs to be herself. When faced with silence, she does not panic. When confronted with jealousy, she does not collapse. When rejected, she does not lose her pride, because she understands that her worth is not in the hands of others. She no longer lives to prove, she lives to be present. And that presence is what makes her irreplaceable. The woman who is truly happy and free is not one who has never cried. She has cried many times. But every tear did not make her weaker. It made her deeper. She has felt pain. She has fallen. But instead of burying herself in darkness, she turned pain into fire, turned collapse into the foundation of new strength. That is why she does not need to shout to prove herself. She only needs to stand, and the pride in her eyes is enough to make others know that this is someone who cannot be shaken. Her happiness no longer depends on the presence of anyone else. It lives in the small choices she makes each day, choosing calm over impulse, truth over pretending, pride over clinging, herself over the chase for outside approval. And her freedom is not the freedom to do whatever she wants, but the freedom not to be enslaved by fear and fleeting emotions. This woman is the embodiment of the journey we have walked through together. From the mirror of silence, the door of jealousy, the test of rejection, the furnace of pain, to the strength of discipline and wholeness. All of it comes together to form an image, a human being who knows who she is, who knows her worth, and who refuses to let anything outside define it. And that is true happiness, the happiness of a heart that has learned to be free. The image of this woman is not far away. It can be you if you dare to walk through the dark, if you dare to face yourself, if you dare to stay consistent, and finally, if you dare to choose yourself. Because the greatest privilege of life is not being loved by others. It is being able to live fully as yourself. And when you reach that moment, you will understand that there is no freedom more sacred than this. The journey we have just walked through has not been easy. It is filled with silences that make you uneasy, jealousy that makes you ashamed, rejection that causes you pain, and wounds that once made you believe you could never rise again. But it is precisely these things that become the material that shapes a person who is steady, proud, and free. Do not think that happiness means the absence of pain. Happiness is the ability to walk through it while still keeping yourself whole. Do not wait for the world to be perfect before you allow yourself peace. Train yourself to find peace even when the world is in chaos. I hope you are brave enough to choose yourself, steady enough not to be swept away by fleeting emotions, and strong enough to turn every wound into strength. If you can do that, no one can take away the freedom in your soul. Thank you for staying, for listening, and for walking this path with me until the end. I wish you health, resilience, and the ability to find peace right within your own heart.